Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something that I think a lot of people are curious about,
Yeah?
but a lot of people maybe don't talk about or have the right information about.
Right.
And that is anal penetration in women.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a really interesting source for you today. It's a YouTube video from the channel charles.so.
Yeah.
The video is called 94% des femmes qui la pratiquent ont eu des orgasmes,
Wow.
which translates to 94% of women who practice it have had orgasms.
Okay.
And it's got a question mark at the end, which I think is very intriguing.
Yeah, that question mark is really what grabbed our attention.
Yes.
Because it seems like there's a gap there between maybe common assumptions and what's actually going on.
Right.
So in this deep dive, our mission is to explore what the data and recent studies say about women's real experience with anal penetration.
Yeah, so let's start with talking about just how common this practice is.
Yeah.
The video shares some interesting statistics about women in France. It seems that in the last 10 years, around 45 to 55% of women in France have tried anal penetration.
Yeah.
So essentially like 1 in every 2 women.
That's a lot.
Right.
That's a lot. Yeah.
When you consider the figures from earlier periods, like between the 1980s and the 2000s,
Yeah.
it was only about 25%, 1 in 4 women.
Mm.
And before the 1980s, it was even lower at about 15%.
Okay.
So what we're seeing is a change in the last few decades, a big change in how common this is.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, what is fueling that change?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it just more readily available information, shifting cultural attitudes?
Yeah.
Maybe just people are more comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, yeah.
All of those things could be playing a role.
So the video breaks down the numbers by age group,
Yeah.
which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, age is a big factor here. So among women aged 20 to 40, about 50% have experimented with anal penetration.
But then that number jumps up to 63% for women between 40 and 50.
Oh, wow.
So it seems like as women get older, they're more likely to have tried it at least once.
Right.
And as the video mentions, this doesn't necessarily mean that this age group practices it the most frequently.
Right.
But they've had more opportunity throughout their lives to explore it.
Yes, to explore it.
And then for women over 60, the number drops down to around 1 in 3.
Okay.
And again, that could be connected to just different sexual norms when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But still a substantial portion have tried it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how this has kind of evolved over time.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's important to, when we're looking at these numbers,
Yeah.
it's not just about how many women have tried it,
Right.
but it's also about how they feel about it.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting because there are a lot of negative assumptions out there.
Yeah.
This idea that women only do it to please their partners.
Right.
Or that they feel pressured into it.
Yeah, or that they're like, okay, for a special occasion.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
can't really say no.
They're like, oh, it's New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
Right.
Like the video actually shares an anecdote about a patient
Oh,
whose wife agreed to do it for New Year's,
okay.
even though she wasn't really into it.
Oh,
So it highlights this perception that it's often driven by the partner's desires
yeah.
rather than the woman's.
Yeah, for sure. And what I think is so fascinating is, when we look at studies that have actually asked women
Right.
who practice anal penetration about their enjoyment,
Yeah.
it kind of changes the conversation, right?
Right. It shifts it from these assumptions to actual lived experiences.
Exactly.
And that's what we really want to focus on.
Right.
What are women actually saying about this?
Yeah, so the video breaks down anal stimulation into 3 different categories,
Yeah.
which I think is really important.
Yeah. It's good to be specific here because we're not just talking about one thing. We're talking about different types of stimulation.
So the first category is external stimulation of the anus or the anal margin.
Right.
And this can involve touching with fingers, sex toys, a penis, or even oral stimulation.
Yeah. Analingus.
Analingus, right.
So anything that's stimulating the outside of the anus.
Right. And the video even mentions, the importance of being gentle.
Yeah. They actually reference another video on their channel about how to avoid pain.
Right, because that's a big concern.
Yeah, it can be, and we want to make sure that everyone is being safe and responsible.
Right.
So yeah, external stimulation is the first category.
Okay, and then the second category is shallow internal penetration.
Yeah.
Which is only going in about 1 centimeter.
Right, just a little bit.
And the video suggests that this might not actually be the most pleasurable experience.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
The anal sphincter is a muscle that naturally contracts.
Right.
And so when you have that very shallow entry, it might just feel like pressure or discomfort. rather than pleasure.
So it's not actually stimulating anything.
Right. It's more just kind of like, I don't know.
Like a weird pressure.
Yeah, weird pressure that's not necessarily a good feeling.
Right.
And the video even connects this to potential issues like hemorrhoids, because if you're constantly putting pressure on that area, it can cause problems.
Right.
So it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah. And then the third category is complete anal penetration,
Right.
which is, I think, what most people think of when they think of anal sex.
Yeah, the full insertion.
So the researchers asked women who practiced these different types what they preferred.
Yeah, and the results are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So complete anal penetration was actually the least appreciated form.
Okay.
Only about 15 to 20% of women said they really enjoyed it. Shallow penetration was kind of in the middle.
Okay.
And the most appreciated form was external stimulation.
Really?
Yeah, around 40% of women said they liked that the best.
Wow. That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, it is. And it shows that, there's a lot of variation in what women find pleasurable.
Yeah, and even with that most appreciated category,
Yeah.
like that's still saying that 60%,
Right. The majority
of women don't necessarily enjoy it.
don't particularly enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really emphasizes the individuality of it all.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if we think about this in the context of female orgasm,
Yeah.
the video mentions that clitoral stimulation and other erogenous zones are often the primary ways that women reach orgasm.
Right.
So anal stimulation can be part of a pleasurable experience, but it's not necessarily the key to orgasm for most women.
It makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're focusing on areas that have more nerve endings,
Right.
like the clitoris or even the external anal area,
Yeah,
that might be more pleasurable for more women than just deep penetration into a muscle.
exactly. It's about finding what works for you.
Right. And so the video also talks about why some women might not want to engage in anal penetration at all.
Yeah, and there are a lot of valid reasons for that.
Right.
One of the big ones is a previous negative experience.
Right.
Maybe it was painful, maybe it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Often due to improper technique.
If your first experience is bad, then yeah, that's gonna...
It's going to stick with you.
Yeah.
And it's understandable why someone wouldn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
The video also makes a really important point, which is simply not wanting it.
Right.
And they emphasize how important it is to respect that no,
Yeah.
without needing any justification or explanation.
You don't have to explain yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like you might not like a certain food,
Right.
you don't have to have a reason for not wanting to do something sexually.
Right. It's your body. It's your choice.
Exactly. And I think that's something that we need to talk about more.
Yeah, for sure.
And then finally, there are cultural, social, or stigma-related reasons why someone might not want to engage in anal penetration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage that comes with this topic.
Yeah.
And it's important to be sensitive to that.
So, we see this range of reasons why women might not want it.
Right.
And it all really just underscores how important consent is
Absolutely.
and open communication and gradual exploration.
Yeah.
Safe practices.
all of those things are so important.
Yeah. So let's talk about that big headline.
Yeah.
The 94% orgasm.
94% of women who practice it have orgasms.
Right. Like, what's the truth behind that?
Yeah, it's a really attention-grabbing statistic,
Yeah.
but it's important to understand what it actually means.
Right.
So the video clarifies that this 94% orgasm rate
See you soon
is
for the
not
next
among
part.
all women who had anal sex in their last encounter.
Okay.
That would be a huge number.
That'd be a huge number. Yeah.
Instead, the 94% refers to 94% of women who appreciate anal penetration
Okay.
and had it during their last encounter, reported having an orgasm.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Because it's women who already enjoy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not saying that anal sex will automatically lead to orgasm for 94% of women.
Right.
It's saying that if you enjoy anal sex,
Yeah.
you're more likely to have an orgasm when you have it,
Right.
which makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
If you're comfortable and relaxed and you're communicating with your partner about what feels good,
Right.
you're more likely to have a positive experience.
And I think it's probably, if you already enjoy it, you're more likely to be in a mindset where you're going to reach orgasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And, the video also highlights that this statistic probably reflects a combination of factors.
Yeah.
So it's not just about enjoying anal sex.
Right.
It's also about having a good understanding of your own body.
Yeah.
using varied sexual practices,
Mm-hmm.
communicating with your partner.
Yeah.
So it's all of these things working together.
So it's not just like a magic bullet.
Right. It's not like, oh, if you have anal sex, you'll definitely have an orgasm.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that.
It's more about the whole experience.
Yep.
So to sum up, anal penetration, it's definitely more common now than it was in the past.
Yeah.
But women's experiences and preferences vary a lot.
Absolutely.
Right.
And external stimulation seems to be more popular than deep penetration.
Yeah.
And that 94% orgasm rate.
Yeah.
Well, it's specific to women who already enjoy anal sex.
Yes, it's not a universal truth about anal sex.
Exactly.
It's just about a particular group of women.
Right. And it's important to remember that.
Yes.
And I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is the importance of communication.
Yeah.
Talking to your partner about what you like and don't like,
Mm-hmm.
being honest about your desires.
Being respectful of each other's boundaries.
Exactly.
And, moving beyond those myths and generalizations
Yeah.
that we often hear about anal sex.
It's not about what everyone else is doing. It's
Right.
about what you and your partner want to do.
Yeah. And I think this deep dive really just shows, the importance of understanding the nuances
Mm-hmm.
within sexual experiences. It's not about chasing after statistics.
Yeah.
It's about understanding individual desires
Absolutely.
and fostering that open communication.
Yeah.
So for you, the listener, think about all the other areas of sexuality where maybe you're relying on broad assumptions
Yeah.
instead of focusing on those individual realities.
It's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah, and so I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah. Thanks for exploring this with me.
My
It
pleasure.
was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, and for you, the listener, to consider,
Yeah.
how could a deeper understanding of these diverse preferences, not just in this area, but across all aspects of intimacy, how could that reshape how we approach sexual health education,
Yeah.
communication in our relationships?
Yeah.
It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. It's not an easy answer, but it's an important question.
Yes, it is.
So keep that in mind.